Welcome to today's Explainer. If you've been scrolling through social media lately, you might have noticed a rather, unusual six-legged insect completely invading your feed. Today, we're unpacking a movement that literally started as a total joke, but has rapidly morphed into this massive digital juggernaut. It's capturing the attention of veteran politicians and millions of young people alike. We are talking about the wild, absurd, and completely real rise of the cockroach janta party.
Section 1. India's Viral Insect Party. Let's get right into the sheer scale of this thing.
10 million. Seriously, 10 million. That staggering number represents the Instagram followers the Cockroach Janta Party, or CJP, gained in less than a single week. I mean, in an era where building a digital audience takes years of carefully crafted content, this satirical collective achieved massive virality practically overnight. It's truly wild.
To put that 10 million into perspective, this satirical collective just eclipsed the Instagram following of the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, or the BJP. Now, the BJP has around 8.7 million Instagram followers and is widely considered the world's largest political party by membership. Let that sink in for a second. A parody group has actually outpaced the social media reach of the country's dominant political force. And the name CNJP? Yeah, it's a direct, cheeky parody of the BJP.
And get this, they did all of this using a cockroach as their mascot. Now, you're probably wondering, why a cockroach? Well, it's a deliberate, deeply ironic choice. It reflects something stubborn, reviled, but practically indestructible. It is definitely not heroic. It's not aspirational, right? It's literally a mascot for surviving hostile conditions with extremely low expectations. And for millions of young people navigating today's tough economy, that metaphor just hit incredibly close to home.
Section 2. The spark behind the swarm. So how did this even start?
How did a digital swarm of this magnitude actually begin? The initial spark was a highly controversial quote from a court hearing. India's Chief Justice Surya Kant allegedly compared unemployed young people drifting towards journalism and activism with fake degrees to cockroaches and parasites. Now, to be fair, he did later clarify that he was referring strictly to people with bogus degrees, not the youth of India as a whole. But on the internet, the match had already been struck. The comments spread like wildfire, instantly triggering widespread online outrage and perfectly paving the way for this massive parody.
In response to all of this, Abhijit Deepke, a political communications strategist and Boston University student, launched the CJP as a complete joke. And you had to meet some absolutely hilarious tongue-in-cheek membership requirements to join. You had to be unemployed, lazy, chronically online, and possess the ability to rant professionally. It was just this brilliant, self-deprecating embrace of the very insults thrown at them. Deepke has set up a simple Google form, probably expecting maybe a few friends to join in on the joke.
But the joke quickly spilled offline. What started with the digital hashtag #MainBeCockroach, which roughly translates to I too am a cockroach, turned into actual physical action. Young volunteers started showing up at cleanup drives and protests dressed in full, literal cockroach costumes. Theatrical? Absolutely. But it got so big that their X account, which had amassed over 200,000 followers, was actually blocked in India. Viewers were just seeing a message that it was withheld in response to a legal demand. So yeah, the joke could become a very real headache for the authorities.
Section 3. Why the joke landed. Let's look at the data driving this.
It really all comes down to demographic reality. India has one of the world's youngest populations. Roughly half of its 1.4 billion people are under 30 years old. This is a massive, incredibly online generation, and they are currently wrestling with some severe anxieties. Despite a fast-growing economy, they're dealing with constant worries over jobs, glaring inequality, and the rising cost of just, surviving. For many of them, simply getting a degree doesn't guarantee stability anymore.
And the resulting disconnect is huge. A recent survey reveals that a massive 29% of young Indians avoid political engagement entirely. And on the flip side, only 11% are formal members of a political party. That is a massive gap of politically alienated youth. They feel entirely unrepresented by traditional, heavily managed political systems, yet they're constantly exposed to politics online every single day.
Which brings us to this really powerful insight from the CJP's founder, Abhijit Deepke. He says, Gen Z has given up on traditional political parties and wants to create its own political front in a language they understand. So the crucial takeaway here is that this isn't just some spontaneous rebellion or a silly meme. It's actually a marker of severe generational fatigue. They're using internet culture, irony, memes, doom-scrolling jokes, to speak a political language that the traditional establishment simply doesn't speak at all.
Section 4. Satire as Political Rebellion.
Blurring humor with politics isn't exactly a brand new concept. Just look at the global precedents. In Italy, comedian Beppe Grillo turned anti-establishment humor into the highly influential five-star movement. In Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky literally went from playing a fictional president on television to becoming the actual, real-life president. And over in the USA, the Trump era sparked endless debates about whether satire can even exist when political reality often feels like a parody itself. So, comedians and satirical platforms transforming into real political powerhouses, it's a recognized global phenomenon for sure.
However, what's really fascinating is how India's version differs from its immediate neighbors. In places like Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bangladesh, youth frustration over jobs-installed futures led to massive physical protests that literally unseated governments. India has avoided that kind of physical upheaval. Instead, the exact same underlying pressures are taking a much more fragmented, ironic, and purely digital form. The despair is 100% real, but the battleground? It's social media, not the State House steps.
Section 5. The Future of Youth Politics. Where is this all heading?
If you look closely at the CJP's mock website, buried just beneath all those self-deprecating, doom-scrolling jokes, you'll actually find these incredibly serious, recognizable political claims. The youth are actively demanding accountability, media reform, electoral transparency, and expanded representation for women. The tone might be a mix of parody and sincerity, but make no mistake, the demands are crystal clear. They are just plain tired of pretending everything is fine.
Now, we do have to be realistic here. Critics, who often point out DPK's past association with the opposition AAP party, dismiss the CJP as just carefully packaged digital theater. And to be fair, they correctly point out that traditional parties like the BJP and Congress still thoroughly, totally dominate real-world politics with millions of active, on-the-ground members. The CJP is definitely politically untested. But whether you view it as opposition theater or a breath of fresh air, you absolutely cannot deny its impact. The CJP has successfully managed to make millions of alienated young people feel seen in a highly managed political culture.
Which leads me to our final question for today's explainer. I want to leave you with this really provocative thought. In earlier eras, youth political anger produced fiery written manifestos. But looking ahead to 2026, as traditional systems struggle to engage Gen Z, will insect-themed meme parties actually become the new blueprint for political expression? It's a wild shift in how we communicate frustration, and it's definitely something every traditional politician should be paying very close attention to. Thanks for joining me, and keep your eyes peeled. You really never know where the swarm will show up next.